Joining us now is Corey Adams from Robert Half, talking to us about a recent survey that they've done on the state of the labor market and really some topical data because we just got the job openings and labor turnover survey this morning. Corey, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, as always, for having me, Mike.
So I feel like the narrative this year has been about, hey, finally this labor market's cooling off. We're not needing to pay these massive bonuses that we were to find work at our stores and at a lot of these locations. And yet your survey seems to find a lot of people still looking to get out of their current job and move around.
Yeah, so the survey we did somewhat recently, and it was over 2,500 U.S. workers, and it found a couple things that I think are worth mentioning. So, and you just referenced it, right? So professionals continue to explore options right now. 28% of Boston-based workers are currently looking for a new role, and 24% stated that they plan to start searching for a new role by the end of the year. And I think it's important to note that some workers are actually more likely to make a career move than others. Specifically, the Gen Zers were the largest group, and that group was born in between 1995 and 2012. The next group was technology professionals, followed by working parents, and then the last group that sort of jumped out was the employees who had been with their company for 2 to 4 years. And then the last key finding I'll share with you, and this is somewhat affirmed to the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, is that contract work is still a viable option for people in this market. In fact, 4 in 10 workers are open to pursuing contract work right now.
Corey, we saw this big disruption in all sorts of markets over the last few years. This survey actually reminds me of a completely unrelated one that Redfin put out earlier this year about the portion of American homebuyers doing searches outside of their metro area. It was a record high. It made up about a quarter of total Redfin searches on their platform was, hey, I'm sitting in Boston and looking at real estate in Phoenix, Arizona, or something like that. Do you think there's still just some of this to be worked out, that people are still looking to maybe upend where they've been over the last few years and move and just really get to a different type of career path? Or on the other side, is it just so easy to search for a job and search for a home these days that the data is just different than what we're used to expecting?
Sure. I think it's a good question. It's hard to kind of quantify and hard to answer. Here's what I would say. I'll give you a couple trends that we're seeing on both ends of this. So job seekers right now, as much as we have some of this data, in general, they're just being more deliberate in this moment. And so many workers have changed jobs during the pandemic. And as a result, they're just probably a little bit reluctant to sort of jump into something so quickly, whether now or in the near term. You just referenced it. The quits rate dropped from a peak of 2.8 in 2022, and it was 2.6 obviously in May. Not updated. But then on the other side of it, for employers are just hiring more strategically. And I think in the past I've described it as more of a measured approach, right? So while employers they are hiring, they're just taking a lot longer than they have in the past and significantly drawing out the process. And ultimately for everybody, flexible staffing is a top of mind strategy. And historically, when economic conditions are a little uncertain, and you can potentially describe them that right now, that organizations are going to lean more heavily on contract work to kind of navigate through these times.
I mean, Corey, Robert Half is front and center when it comes to the labor market, right? You guys see, hey, big companies are looking for temporary work or aren't looking, and frequently we see that temporary work be one of the first things to fall off in a recession when companies are looking to downsize and potentially bring their budgets into control. Are you seeing any signs of that right now? Because I feel like everybody out there is, just parsing through data, looking for signs of a recession, and so far not finding much evidence. What are you guys seeing? Like, are we still in the great resignation stage, or are we in a cooling labor market now?
Sure. Well, I think a few things. So first, the research that we do, just to kind of note here, it really gauges workers' job search plans versus actual job movement. Because as we know, that comes through the Labor Department's quit rate. And so the job market is still favorable for workers with in-demand skills. And so to your other question, are we seeing a drop-off in the contract space? No, but I'd also say think about the usage of a contract worker. Companies can use it when they need to scale up and scale down quickly.
Yep.
It could also be pretty cost effective, particularly when you navigate through heavy workloads and different peaks. What I love about it too is that it gives you access to skills that you might not have within your current infrastructure. And then a big one, and this is going to be important for the remainder of this year, contract workers and the usage of them is really going to potentially be used to help prevent burnout amongst existing staff, which could be a real thing in the next 5 months.
It's Corey Adams. He's from Robert Half talking to us about the Job Optimism Survey, where they found 1 in 4 U.S. workers is currently looking for a new role. Corey, appreciate it always for you joining us today, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks, Mike. Talk soon.